Globally, standards have been set that dictate the ethical and humane treatment of wildlife. These standards are internationally researched. However, in Oslob Philippines, these standards are rarely adhered to, especially in the case of whale sharks. It is commonplace for local tour guides to feed the whale sharks in an attempt to increase sightings and subsequently tourism. This behavior has been deemed harmful by biologists and marine life enthusiasts who claim it not only changes behavior patterns, but is also causing physical harm to the creatures. As feeding the whale sharks is a relatively new practice, the long-term effects have not been fully documented, though preliminary studies have been alarming. By researching the topic, I discovered extensive studies on the effects of feeding the whale sharks. These studies have shown how disruptive and harmful feeding can be to natural behavior patterns. Feeding is conducted in shallow water, which has a higher temperature than the deep water normal to whale shark feeding. Thermal stress on the creatures was reported due to extended residency time in the shallow waters. Furthermore, increased aggression between the sharks was reported while in the feeding area. Close contact between the sharks is a concern, as the spread of diseases and parasites can occur and has been documented in the whale sharks at Oslob. In Oslob, the whale sharks' eating behavior has also changed, as they now swim towards and bump against the boats in an attempt to request food. Common behavior of whale sharks is avoidance of contact with humans. Studies conclude that this is a learned behavior developed from the practice of feeding. These whale sharks are learning that food is found at the surface of the water given by the tour guides. Although this is safe in Oslob, as the boats have no propellers, this behavior is alarming at other areas of their migrational route, as it leaves them vulnerable to collision with boats that have propellers and cause harm. Collisions result in injuries to the head, gills, and eyes. Such injuries were reported in 47% of the sharks frequenting Oslob, which is considerably higher in comparison to the whale sharks in Mexico, which report a 25% injury rate. The former example shows how the changes in behavior due to feeding is having a harmful effect on the health and well-being of the whale sharks in Oslob. Feeding has been shown to be harmful to the shark. Whale sharks are not domesticated animals. They are wild and therefore need to hunt and migrate in order to maintain their well-being. By creating dependence on food that is directly fed to them, it can change their innate behavior patterns and lead to physical harm. It could also have a negative effect on the rest of the ocean's biodiversity, as changing migratory patterns would affect the food chains in those areas. Whale sharks play an important role in the ocean and should be left to feed naturally. Regulations on the treatment and interaction with the whale sharks need to be put into effect and, most importantly, enforced. As tourists, we need to stop visiting locations that do not follow international standards of protocol. Loss of tourism income is one way that we can show our dissatisfaction with the current situation. Signing petitions and contacting local authorities is also effective to show that people will not put up with the mistreatment of wild animals. Now is the time to show support for these majestic creatures. Make your opinions known and your voice heard. Show your support by joining this Facebook group, or start a petition on change.org. Your ongoing support is needed to help these beautiful creatures. By researching this subject, I have developed a greater understanding of 3 different topics. Firstly, my knowledge on whale sharks and their natural behavior patterns has grown exponentially, as well as the impact of feeding them for tourism. Secondly, I've learned about the changing natural behaviors of animals and food chains and how it affects all of the creatures involved. Finally, I've also learned what sustainable ecotourism means, finding a way to watch wild animals in their natural habitat, but doing so in a way that is not harmful to the animals and is sustainable over time. I've learned that a single choice can have a great impact. Choosing to not visit a site due to improper treatment of animals is a way to not support unwanted behavior. If other tourists do the same, there's a possibility for change to occur. While other more active forms of activism are necessary, this one small change is something that everyone can do that can have a great impact.